Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Great Awakening Generator. I am Rose McNair, and today I have the wonderful, incredible Greg Doyle with me. How are you, Greg?
Hi, Rose. I'm well. Thanks for having me on the show.
So good to have you back. And everyone, if you haven't watched the first interview I did with Greg last year, please catch it. I'll put the link in the description box. But I'll tell you a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of what Greg does, and then we'll let him explain more of that. So, Greg is an astral traveler. He also teaches others to go astral traveling. He's a Reiki master and an author. Did I say that all right, Greg?
You sure did.
So tell us, Greg, for the benefit of anybody that hasn't watched the previous interview, tell us about firstly how you are, and then tell
Yeah.
us what all it is that you do.
Yeah, it is funny as you introduced me because I think to myself, really? I do that? I never would have predicted that years ago. I mean, look, I was a classical musician as I mentioned in the last interview, and it really was these profound experiences I had leaving my body with lights and vibrations that it so changed my reality. And it got me to doing what I do now. And it was like the choice was taken out of my hands in the best sense. It was just so bizarre, but also so beautiful, these experiences I had. And I think um it was almost like when it first started happening with me that I didn't need almost to explain it to others, even though I do when I teach it now. But it was just a feeling, it was just so personal and so real, these out of body experiences I was having and meeting guides and the whole notion of extraterrestrials that I hadn't thought about and past lives that I really wasn't on my mind. The whole astral experience I'd actually never heard of. I think someone had mentioned astral traveling like 20 years earlier or something, but it just was something that was not on my radar. And therefore probably I didn't have the pressure to experience it. Like it's funny when I teach people now, they often come to workshops and things and they really want it to happen. I never had that because I never knew about it. So the thing was, um, the feelings you'd have in these ultra real realities, like that was you couldn't not want to go back there. You couldn't not want to have that experience again or find or go deeper. You couldn't not explore that. It was like being a little kid again, discovering, forest or something, for the first time, or a beach for the first time. It was just so wonderful. So that whole realm of energy and energy healing just became so fascinating. Um, but once again, that notion that I wasn't in control. What I mean by that is it was like something else was leading me down that path in the best sense. It was, and now I have the feeling that in fact, as a human, we actually channel our life. We're actually the cosmos channeling ourselves through ourselves. And it's kind of a beautiful ease that has afforded me. And it doesn't mean I don't have the challenges. Like, I'm still a human. I still have challenges. We're talking before the recording about, the challenges of the last couple of years and stuff. And I still have those challenges, but there's sort of a grace or an ease that has come with the whole process, which is very nice. And yeah, and that's probably the best way of putting it. But
Yeah.
in a nutshell, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you are now teaching others to do the astral travel. And I'm sorry, but I apologize because one of the main things I should have said in the beginning when I introduced you was that you are a musician, because that's the music. The music has taken you there, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, I know it sounds funny to say I was a musician, but yeah, I mean, I'm not a professional musician anymore, but it's true. This reminds me. Before I had these full-on experiences, I remember having it was an astral experience looking back, and or it was like a lucid dream at the time. Okay, I'd say it was a lucid dream, but there was something more. And I was in this circle, and I was sitting in this circle with these people in this dream. I was aware that I was dreaming. I was aware that there was something. I remember there was this Indian guy, and he was talking to others, and they were wondering if I was ready. I remember that. And there was this gold, like this gold ring in front of us, this huge gold ring on the ground. And the guy said to me, focus on the ring, this gold ring. And I focused on this ring and I was sort of taken into it. And inside this, and then I was sort of in this void of nothingness, which is often in the astral. And there's this incredible music, this beautiful, ethereal. It was the classic. It was like harp and just this beautiful music. I remember coming back from that, thinking, oh wow, this not only was this beautiful music, and you often do hear that in the astral, but there was also this, that was the beginning, it was like a spiritual initiation of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was before I'd started, not long before I started having all these astral experiences that were very conscious and all that. And then also this notion of music and having been attracted to music as a kid. I remember as a little kid hearing the violin played for the first time live. I just thought, wow, there's some magical world. So if we think of frequency and higher frequency, definitely music had something to do with my awakening. Yeah,
Mm,
I would say.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I just recently, or I won't say recently, maybe a few months ago, maybe August last year, I was listening to a video that Greg Braden was talking about, talking, and he was talking about music, and he was talking about, he was actually, the topic was about AI, and he was talking about how we maintain our personal sovereignty and how we have got something that, you know, cannot, like AI, it's meant to be replacing humans. But the thing that makes us different is the music within us, is because that's the soul connection. And I'm saying it rather inarticulately, I guess, the way I'm describing it. But you know what I mean? It's saying like this is something you cannot replicate. Music that's within your soul. That's the creativity we have. That creativity cannot be replicated in any way. And that's what when we give over to that kind of thing, and in completion we're sort of we're giving away, or what they're trying to replicate cannot be replicated. You cannot replicate the human because of that soulfulness of the music that lies within us. So I thought that was profound, and I'm hearing you say something similar now, that
And, yeah, and you're absolutely right. I feel exactly the same way. And also, I've got this. Like a dowser, right? Lately I've been very interested in measuring the chi of things. Like, so what I've found is everything has a certain amount of chi generally, right? Life force energy. Now, like a plant, all these things. So you can actually measure this, and I'm really into this, and being involved in energy stuff. What I found is when I would measure the chi of something written by AI, it had a very basically no chi. Because I wondered sometimes why when I would read something written by AI, clever words, good use of syntax, all this kind of stuff, but my mind would skate off it. I thought
Mm,
there's something wrong with the energy here, and I've got friends who are healers themselves, and they use AI often for their events, and they've had issues with people responding, and I said, look, you need to lose the AI descriptions because there's no soul there.
yeah.
And this is actually measurable. This is
Yes.
actually measurable. It doesn't. And I was just fascinated when I saw the AI generated stuff just was not presenting an energy field that um, that would kind of translate with ours, that would interact with our energy field. So you're quite right. Just from that viewpoint, it's not really, and as a result, stuff that I had and that I was using, I actually got rid of.
Okay.
That's so
I'm
funny
not,
that
yeah. Yeah, I'm not consciously, I'm not, I don't have an awareness of my, or I'm not consciously using it. Let's say that. Um, Greg, I'm going to put that link, as I promised our audience, so that they can find out more about your work. And before we say goodbye today, if you could, I'll get you before we say goodbye to tell us about anything that's happening that you want people to know about in terms of workshops and all of that. One of the things I was curious about, so we'll get back to that, but I wanted to ask you about astral travel and current times. because as we were speaking, I thought I've seen a few things happening. Well, not a few things, a lot of things happening up in our skies. And for me, astral travel or lucid dreaming, I probably said this last time when we were talking, I was always kind of freaked out by it and thinking, oh, maybe because I've heard, oh, you've got to be very careful when you do lucid dreaming, or you've got to be very careful when you do astral travel because you might have things attached to you. You know, people believe this stuff that's going on. So tell us about that the safety, because the safety around that, just remind us about that, because you said it the last time and I know I am converted since then. And also, how is astral travel going and working right now in this time, because so much has happened since we last spoke.
Yeah, well, first of all, everyone needs to know that you're astral traveling. Everybody's astral traveling. Everybody's going home, if you like. So the astral body um, is like a prism where it brings in certain energies. It does have that capacity to, well, the function actually of bringing in certain energies and then translating those energies into our physical body. So we do go out of body every night. Now, um, what I've found is, so when we say astral travel, what we mean is becoming conscious in the astral body. So when you start to wake up and become conscious, and I'm not conscious in my astral body every night. It's not, I've got to. Sometimes it just happens a lot because that's my propensity. But you can kind of kick that into being. And so what happens is, it is a fluid realm out there, but when you are aware in that higher body, energies that are not necessarily helping us tend to kind of flee the scene, if you like.
Okay.
So your greatest protection or empowerment is consciousness in that realm. So we are being, and not in a negative sense, but like in this reality, we're influenced by certain things, by the solar flares, there's programming,
Yeah.
from your environment, from news articles. So people are being programmed at all times anyway. They're being influenced. So too in the astral that we're being influenced. That's just the way it is. So it seems that the astral awareness has kind of gone a bit dormant in the human species. It was activated a long time ago, but since the programming has got very strong, there's certain frequencies of fear that are being radiated at the planet. And that's part of the human karmic saga, is dealing with fear and recognizing it's not our fear. So when you get out of body, often, so some people get a bit freaked out because they might have an experience. When they're first conscious, there's someone there. And then, but what they don't realize is it's their own frequency that is resonating and forming, like what I call a lower astral threshold entity that's actually mirroring the emotional state of that person who is getting out
Oh,
of body. The
yeah.
astral is a direct teacher. It's an instant teacher. We don't even need to logically sort it out. I found by being out there and just in whatever way you feel, interacting with these beings, whether it's the feeling of telling them to go away, or maybe there's a heart release, there's empathy, or it seems that it's an instant teaching environment, if you like.
Yeah.
So so like, a little while ago, I had a client who was freaking out and said, "Look, Greg, I want to get to the bottom of this. I'm kind of going out of my body, but I sense there's a being looking at me, dark." And they were freaking out about this. Now, eventually, through meditation and just a few exercises, what he realized is, he went into that position of looking over his own body. He was actually seeing himself look over himself. So it was like this,
Yes.
and so through his, what would you call it? Kind of, unawareness, his unawareness out of the body, he naturally presumed that this entity or this presence was somehow negative.
Yeah.
Just we are taught the dark is scary, yet where we often go in the astral is called the void. It's a dark space, and there we just put what it is we want. We just put the intention of what we wish to experience, and then we fly immediately to that experience. So in fact, the void of creation, which existed before um, sound and light, that's where we all spring from. So in
Mm.
fact, this darkness is not scary, but we are programmed to be afraid of the dark to a certain extent. So what he discovered was, okay, this is actually an aspect of me. And then that was like a gateway opening, and he could go further. So in the beginning, when I started going out of body, and I trusted, I remember one person who I knew who was into that kind of stuff, because I didn't talk publicly on the issue when I didn't tell my friends what was happening.
No.
And I remember she said to me, "Don't do it. It's dangerous, It's. And I remember thinking, um, because I kind of had a free pass, it was so ecstatic, it was so beautiful. And I remember thinking, I thought about it long and hard, and I thought, well, it's happening to me anyway. But I thought, no, this is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then I even hesitated. I tell other people about this, and I thought, well, I had a very strong feeling that this is an innate, this human condition, that this is a sense that we've lost, and being conscious in the astral, because we all have astral bodies. If we didn't have an astral body, we wouldn't be here physically, because the astral body actually preempts the physical.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is falling into your higher sense of self. It's not an add-on. And the more I realized that, I thought, look, I'm gonna teach people how to do this, because it's an overwhelmingly good thing. And because I don't come from any particular spiritual tradition, I'm not silenced by that, because there are a lot of
Yeah.
traditions that and in the end, the student will only take on what is right for them. You can't force things. Like,
Yeah.
so if I offer information to people, generally they've seeked me out. Um, like anybody watching this has found your a page in your interview. So I'm not forcing it on the masses. I'm not forcing it.
No.
So, and that's important, that people, it feels right. But I can overwhelmingly say that um, the greatest form of protection in these realms is this sense of sovereignty and empowerment that comes with it. We are sovereign beings. We have the capacity and the right to know what the greater aspects of ourselves, and these magnificent things that come with it, and these
Yeah.
magnificent powers, these magnificent realizations, transformations. That can't be a bad thing, I know that. So
Yeah.
that's the empowerment of this process. There's nothing a person can't deal with out there. There's
Mm.
nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just love your explanation. It is so reassuring. And I think I probably said that the last time too when we talked, and that's just okay, because if we repeat it, that's fine. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching the channel at the moment have not caught that interview. And so maybe this is a repeat for that reason. Um, you know, so are you finding, and I'm just kind of going to be a very curious person now. And I agree with you about this. Firstly, I'll say I agree that when we all astral travel, when we go to sleep at night, we're not actually staying physically, we're here, but we are leaving the body. um it's something the soul has to do, I understand, for it to be itself, because it's the soul is our soul self is so huge, so vast. And it's contained in this physicality, or around the physicality, is my understanding. And then when we go to sleep, it sort of goes off and it does its thing, or has this experience. And I think I said to somebody not so long ago, when they were explaining they saw something, and they went to, when they went to bed, and got them they were fearful of it. And I said, well, do you think that was you? And you didn't realize it was you. That's an aspect of yourself. And I'm learning that more and more, that when we go to sleep and we see certain things, or if you're having an energy healing and you have this being next to you, it's probably another aspect of yourself that's there. Um, I like what you said about you said something earlier about our cosmic self. Did you say that our cosmic selves are creating our reality here? You believe that we come and create. Can you say that again for us, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I said, but what my feeling is that we channel
Yes.
our own lives. So
Yeah.
We are channeling the cosmos. So more and more, like one really good meditation before you go to bed at night, before you go to sleep, is kind of falling into this notion of being the cosmos. So what I like to do is I like to lie there, and everybody can try this, and you remind yourself that you are the cosmos. Like for instance, my hands are the hands of the cosmos. How could there be anything else? And also then I'll say my hands are the hands of God, because the word God has a lot of charge for a lot of people. I know for myself, when I was a Catholic little kid, we would never say that. But I found that any words that give you that slightly negative charge, if you can make them positive, get rid of that charge, because that charge is a resistance in itself. So I'll then say, okay, my hands are the hands of God. How can they be, as in the God is the cosmos?
Yeah.
Then I'll say, my heart is the heart of the cosmos. My heart is the heart of God.
Well,
That um, that feeling of frustration I had early in the day is the feeling of frustration of the cosmos, or the feeling of frustration of God. So therefore, God is me. Therefore, I am God. So as I fall asleep, it's almost like I talk myself into my organs and my feelings. I talk myself into being the cosmos, into being God. And then it's a little bit like falling through an hourglass. We have this reality, or we have a certain notion of logic, and it's not easy for us, like, to logically say I am God when you're very in a very beta kind of brain frequency, which is very 3D. We've been programmed that is almost um, sacrilegious. That is almost. um, but I know it to be so. So, and as you bring that logical notions of being the cosmos through that kind of narrowing of the hourglass, which is when you fall asleep, if any of it can drop through into the greater realities, which is when you're asleep, then you can often have an experience. So that is of a higher frequency. So if you can lose that kind of mortal constriction of limitation as you fall asleep, and you fall into that, you're almost like, it's like falling into the all, falling into that great notion of the I am, the capital letters, that golden I am that I am.
mm-hmm.
And just that notion of being the cosmos. And that in itself is like self. It's a beautiful meditation. And
Wow.
it also is very healing. And people don't realize these limitations that they carry um, about themselves is actually a bit of a cop out, right? Because people they think they're being humble by having these limitations, but actually it's almost deliberately excluding themselves from the potentials that can be awakened in their own life. It's a bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
So in shamanistic terms, you would call it soul retrieval. So we often, through large emotional events, large traumatic events in our life, we leave aspects of ourselves in the past, whether it be resentments or guilt, huge emotional moments, and it's like little harpoons, there's little connections of us caught. If only I did that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. If only, and people don't realize how much that plays at them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have this notion of themselves as a fallen human, as a limited human. And society tends to perpetuate that myth. It tends to press those buttons that the person is a lesser entity. And this is the deliberate construction. So the more we realize that to embrace the absolute now, if we get out of dualistic terms, we get out of right and wrong, but if we embrace where we are right now, then every little twist and turn we've done in our life, every decision has been exactly the right one. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're not embracing the moment. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of people go, oh, but that I shouldn't have done it. You can't justify that. Forget right or wrong. The fact of the matter is, you are where you are who you are whatever you're doing right now, you are there. So that is actually facing reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to leave aspects of ourselves. So where humans, the average human is is a fractured has a fractured energy field. So the more we can bring our energy field into this cohesive entity where we really can, be in the moment. And any meditation helps with that. Any meditation, just sitting with yourself.
This is true.
Any meditation, So I would suggest to people who have issues meditating, take the word try out of the equation. Don't try to meditate, just meditate. Just sit there, be with yourself, eyes open or eyes closed, doesn't matter. Just be with yourself. And immensely healing. But as I said, that notion of falling into being the cosmos every night, and then what that naturally does is you kind of feel good, and you're falling out of the logical reality. So as you're falling asleep, the logical tendrils, if you like, of this reality, which telling you who you are, what's your identity, what are your responsibilities, what are your failings, all these things tend to drop away as you fall asleep. So if you can take that notion of being the cosmos and dropping into that kind of exalted state of self, that gives you a really good crack at having an experience of higher frequential awareness when you fall asleep. So that's something people can start doing straight away. I'm not sure how that's answering your question. Yeah, a little bit. I get it
It
now.
is. It is answering a question. And also, I really love how you explain that. And for me, my thing is I float in water when that's what I do. I just feel like I'm on a flat pond and I'm floating, and I see myself in that perfect state, because when I swim, that's one of the things I have trouble with, floating. And in my dreams, before going to bed, I find that I'm in completion when I can imagine myself floating, and just floating and being, just loving where I'm at, and just imagining only love, you know, and
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
no
I
stress,
like
there's nothing.
I really like what you're saying with the floating, because often also I found what is really nice, and this is, I'm alluding to a little bit to what you've been saying too, there has been a slight change in energies. So what I find is, like, if I'm having a nap during the day, I'll just kind of feel my body. And this is also a good kind of way of gaining traction in the astral, is just to be aware of your body and how beautiful it feels, just to be in your limbs. And often you feel this beautiful tingling all through the body. And you're just sort of lying there. You're not aiming at doing anything. You're not thinking about anything. All you're doing is being aware of your body.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, but Greg, with astral travel, aren't you denying the body? And I go, not at all. The body is the gateway to this experience, that the body we all have. So by actually acknowledging the presence of the body, it unravels its secrets. It opens
Mm,
its secret.
yeah.
So it's like these babushka dolls, opening up. So the body, it's not about denying the body at all. It's about actually really acknowledging the body. And so that is a really nice thing, just to feel, as you say, that sort of not have to have any agenda on your mind, just to sort of be with yourself, to float with yourself. Floating is a really good way of doing it. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's my one of my techniques to do that. I just want to go back to what you were saying about people thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. If only I hadn't done that stuff, then it would be like this. It's weird how you say that, because it's kind of synchronous. There's a synchronicity with my thought patterns this week, because I was also thinking this week there has been no mistakes, even if those things look like they're mistakes, or we shouldn't have gone down that pathway. It's like everything we've ever done, whether it was the first choice or the second choice or the 10th choice that we went with, it was relative and relevant, and it's made us who we are now. It's contributed to where we stand right now in this time and space. And yeah, I'm starting to see that more. I'm starting to see that more. There should be no such thing as regrets. It happened. Let's learn and move.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, this realization really, I mean, as we talk about it on logical terms like this, as we are now in 3D, people listening, they will find, they will agree, but there'll be certain resistances, which is in the nature of 3D. But I found this realization really occurred to me in the astral. I was actually like having experience. I remember it was
Wow.
this, I see it so clearly, it was this small little planet. I'm not sure if we talked about this in the last interview, but it was, I remember the horizon was close and there was a stony planet. There was a big red moon to my left, and there was another moon. So there were two moons. And I remember closing my eyes to meditate on this planet in the astral. And when I say in the astral, what I mean by that is my level of awareness was 100% knowing that I was out of body, having this hyperreal experience that is out of the temporal reality. So your mind is incredibly alert, very centered, and entirely relaxed. Right? I remember closing my eyes and having this realization having this realization that we are existing in perfection at all times, and knowing that everything had got me to that point. It was an absolute acceptance of who
Yeah.
I was, who I am. That that just was so clear in the astral state.
Yeah.
And I mean, to meditate in the astral is the highest form of being, I found.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because you are, it's a little bit like probably trying to reach another planet from the moon, which has basically no gravity. So clearly, if you look at the Earth and you look at microcosms and all of this, the Earth has quite a thick gravitational field. To leave the Earth physically is an ordeal.
Mm.
Um, and their physical body also has a certain gravitas to it,
Yes.
right? So in the astral, when you meditate, it is just unreal. And it's the clarity and the perceptions that come through. And I remember having this knowing that, oh, wow, everything is exactly as it should be. And it sounds a little bit glib, a little bit trite when you say it in this reality, but in that reality, it just transformed me in that moment, to know that everything is as it should be, not because it should be, because it is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, and that is absolute acceptance. So
Mm.
when we totally accept, and it's moving to self-love, self-acceptance. I think to be a human is to eventually have absolute, when we get to that point of absolute self-acceptance and self-love, we probably don't need to come back.
No. No. And I'm seeing that more and more. I'm starting to realize that more and more, because that's the completion. That is completing. That is coming to the completion of self. So we don't really need to come back, do we? If you think about it, what if you've arrived at that point, then it's like, okay, whatever's next doesn't necessarily have to be here. It can be out there, just being in that state, or, well, okay, what other dimension? What other planet you want to go to? Um, Greg, so right now, with everything, like we were talking about 2023 or the last 12 months being very different from anything we've ever experienced. Well, I believe for myself, and some of the things I was saying to you about what happened in my world. And uh, do you find now with us going through this phase, and I felt very much, coming back to that, I felt very much that the last 12 months has been about us that have been, whilst the world is doing whatever it's doing, but the transformations, or the difference came with us personally, those people that work with, light workers, astral travelers, Reiki masters, teachers of anything esoteric. We were the ones going through some things that we didn't experience before. And it was almost like we had to go through that, a further transformation of already what we were doing, but we were pushed forward into, with all these different things happening to us. So do you think that was is a way to describe it? And now that all of that has happened, how's astral travel? Do you think there's more demand for astral travel?
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing what's gone on in the last year or so. And I think you're absolutely right. The energy was very serious energy. And also the notion of time, planning, this kind of stuff, trust. I mean, we were really pushed to the edge. And I haven't been personally pushed like that on some level, um, before.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, quite. When I look at a lot of my clients coming in doing Reiki and with the astral stuff, what I found is there's echoes, you know, because we are all connected. A lot of people were having issues with motivation and stuff, and therefore that translated itself to what Lightwork is doing. So as I said, it's like we've been pushed through a tunnel. It's like a birth canal. It's kind of like we were being almost constricted and pushed. And so the frequencies were coming down. It was almost like a need to know basis. So in terms of astrally, it was almost like, I wouldn't say lockdown, but it's a feeling of right now, you just need to be here and just embody these energies, just embody them, just be physical, just embody. Also, the things that we teach and we do almost like, because I like to meditate, I like to do these things, but almost like before they were kind of, yeah, you do that. And almost, even though, it's my work, but as in it's kind of my career path, but it almost went from being the notion of almost meditating as like, oh, that's a bit of fun, a bit like a bit of a hobby kind of concept to having to do it. Also,
Yes. Yeah.
needing to do it for survival. So
Yeah.
you have to do it to feel good because there seemed to be a massive dislocation between how you would feel in these beautiful states and then the actual reality seemed very jarring. So it's like we needed to almost like we needed to bring forth through the astral and into our physical, then emanating into the world around us,
Yeah.
because the world is, in a very strange dance at the moment. So it was difficult to find the humor in that dance. It was difficult to really, didn't really want to dance along with
No.
that dance. It wasn't that much fun, to be honest. So I
Was it?
found I found like a lot of the things that used to give me joy in this reality weren't doing it for me. So and then I heard someone say just in passing, oh, you just need to find that joy again, or maybe you need to go and just do your own retreat, do your own meditation more. So I found we are kind of coming out of that now. And
Yes.
it's just so it's a slightly different impulse that is coming toward us and through us. And where with the astral, what one needs now is almost a quest. Like what people need to do now is really think, what is it that they would like to experience? Like what is it, a greater connection to self, as in higher self? Is it a greater connection to guidance? Um, what is it? So having more of a conscious awareness and translating that to their actual will, because as humans we do have will.
Yeah.
So the astral is almost testing our will, if you like. What
Yeah.
what do we want? What future do we want for ourselves and the community? What do we imagine? What really do we imagine now? Because the old ways are peeling away. The old ways um, don't really contain that. So the motivation behind things, like, so if we're doing something, what is that motivation? Like, so you can forget often the normal ways. You've really got to think on the higher level of what that motivation is behind that event or behind what it is you're doing,
Mm, mm,
and just trust that is that, and allow that to pull you toward it.
yeah.
So it's like the highest good of people, that the highest imagining, the highest future is what is our motivation now.
Yeah.
Almost as a collective.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much coming back to self. We had
Mm.
to look at self. We had to look at all those things that we were not addressing for ourselves personally. And it showed up in things like restlessness or not having motivation to do what we usually do, or not managing the time to support everybody like we used to, and say, well, I just have to do this because if I don't do this, I can't do that. I've lacked motivation to even do my taxes. Oh my gosh. Or I had a professional development course that I was doing, and now and I had to round myself and say, you're going to sit here and you're going to do this, Rose. That's what you have to do. You have to do this. There's no other way. And I've been setting goals for myself to finish it in that time. But also I feel like we went through last year and we've coming out of it. Like you're saying, I agree that it's coming to an end. But And how I know I sensed that for myself was I was suddenly being invited to like, gatherings with people. And then I felt the motivation to go to it. I felt, okay, yeah, I'm excited. I want to do it. That's how I felt intuitively. But it was also, I could hear this intuition coming into it, because usually I'd say, oh, I don't know if I want. It was not thinking about, oh, so how do I feel about that? What is my intuition saying? Should I do that thing that I'm being invited to do? And going along to it. But I'm also finding that even in getting together with people, we're discovering now, I'll talk for myself. I'm discovering now, okay, so we went through the ringer. I'll call it the ringer. We're coming out, we're reconnecting. And I do I make this connection still? It's almost like I'm reviewing after that, going through that cycle of transformation. Do I now, the people that I'm connecting with, are they the ones to connect with? And that's not saying creating separation, because what I think has happened is we have transformed in that process. We've all got to a place where now we are different people. We had to change. We couldn't stay like that for any longer. And now we're finding, okay, we are now resonating with the communities that 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 we've transformed to resonate with. And then now some of the old friendships we've had, whilst we get to that, and you think, well, okay, do I resonate with this anymore? And apparently we don't. But that's not to say we're angry with each other, or there's division. It's just saying, this thing that I used to do, I feel like I cannot do this anymore. It's no longer me. I can't see the sense of that. Or so I'm just finding that's my experience at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think, and this community will find you. It's like yeah, it'll pull you into its orbit, and you'll
Yeah.
pull your community into its orbit. And as you were saying, getting back to that notion of rounding oneself up as you had to do your taxes, I was the same. It was like, people saying, "Oh, when are you putting this astral thing on?" And I go, I can't even sit down in front of the computer and even just, I just, it's just not going to happen. So it was the feeling of just take it easy, but like summoning up these forces just to do something so menial, hilarious. I would laugh at myself, go, "Oh my God, what is wrong with me?" And having this discussion is great for people to listen to, because they realize that they weren't alone in that, or they're not alone in that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
seems to be so.
yeah,
So a new motivation is forming, and one beautiful thing about the astral and how it teaches you is that everything is kind of effortless. Like when you have a conversation in the astral, it's never verbal, not through, not orally. So basically, the words come out of your crown, and then the words from them come through them into your crown. So it's telepathic,
yes,
it's effortless.
yeah,
You don't struggle to find the words, you don't manufacture ideas. The ideas are drawn from you. So you literally sit there, and it's a very pleasurable process when you feel the words coming out of yourself clearer than you yourself would enunciate in this reality. So those same energies are coming into this field where we're going to feel more and more kind of invisible, or like if we have like if there's a for instance, if there's a stress, like a financial stress coming up in the future, you find yourself less focused on that and just knowing that it'll work itself out. Like um, you still do things, but it's the motivation that alters. It's almost like your future self is pulling you to the surface of this murky waters. And then, imagine yourself sort of being pulled toward in this murky ocean, and this feeling of breaking the surface of how clear
yeah,
that would be.
yeah,
So it's like this the modus operandus, if you like, of the human entity has altered. And whether someone is on a conscious spiritual path or not, it's still altered. They,
yeah,
they might not feel it as heavy. They
yeah,
might just feel anxious.
yeah, yeah,
But so what we've got to do is, if people are concerned about their futures, is more to almost go forward and think, well, why is it you're doing that? How does that serve, um, humanity and your higher version of reality and yourself, and so it's more to look at that and to pull yourself up toward that.
Yeah.
So rather than focusing on the little nitty gritties, go to the bigger picture, and then so it's a little bit like turning the cart and the horse around. We've had the cart and the horse in the wrong direction.
Yes. Yes.
We've been taught to problem solve. We've been taught that there is a problem. We've been taught that two plus two, what is a solution? 2 plus 2 equals 4. So we've been taught that's a maths problem, whereas really 4 always existed. 4 always was 2 and 2. We didn't have to go looking for that
Yeah.
answer to that more complicated problem.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, we've been educated as to that everything is a problem that needs to be solved, whereas in fact, the solution is now all around us. We're finding ourselves merging with the solution. Okay, and that's how things work in the astral. So my brain has been rewired, and I think I probably
Yeah.
mentioned in the last interview that about 10 years ago or so ago, or a bit more now, but I had that issue when I was meditating when I couldn't get words together and I couldn't,
Yes.
and that prompted me to write a book about astral travel. Um, but what I found is that the cogs in my brain altered, and that one beautiful thing, one side effect of that was that the monkey mind disappeared. So there was no um, narrator
Yeah.
kind of beating
Yeah.
around the head, which
Yeah.
is still there, which is nice. There's a nice silence. So I find tuning into that ineffable silence, that so for everybody just to tune in above themselves and around themselves and to tune in almost to your higher reality and allow that higher reality to pull you into it. And that's how things happen in the astral. So in many
Yeah.
ways, we're becoming less 3D. We are becoming consciously higher vibrational entities. That's all we're actually becoming.
Exactly. Wow. I love how you explained that because it's exactly right. And I love that we are talking about that because, um, this is like it's becoming every other person, no, well, not every person I talk to is telling me this is what they've been going through. And that is whether they have been doing the meditations regularly or whatever. There isn't anyone I know that's saying my life's okay. Even the people that always say, "Oh, I'm fine, everything's okay," are starting to come out and say life's not like it used to be because something has changed because they're experiencing a shift. And I think it was 2023 for many people would have been a very challenging year. Perhaps that's what it took to get us to this higher vibrational space because that is something that we have experienced. We experienced. I suddenly had a download a few weeks ago where I thought, I don't think we're human anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't
Mm.
know if that's happened to all of us, but I
Mm.
felt like some of us, and this is not causing saying some of us because all of us had a shift, but perhaps some of us were pushed further out into that. And it's not being inhuman, it's being more light, it's being more higher frequency, whatever. Everybody else is going to get there. But I just felt this energy of this is maybe light being became more rather than human. Because I was like, I thought, what does that mean? How can you say that? That's like a very huge, it's like an outrageous statement to make. I don't think, I feel we're no longer human.
Mm.
Wow. It took
Yeah,
that, I guess.
I think you're spot on, Rose. I think you're right. I think everybody's feeling it on the level they're feeling it. So, it is like the pain of going through a birth canal. And I think like I often find because I used to, always feel really good. And then as you say, last year was tricky and the early months this year too. So I found that like I like to go surfing to ground, and to get into the saltwater sea. And I find it often I was driving to the surf, which I'm feeling very comfortable, and I'd be getting out to check the waves and I'd just be crying. And I thought, I don't even know why I'm crying. And it
Wow.
was like this, it was like just this. kind of sadness, and I just allowed it to come up. And I mean,
Yeah.
fortunate as being a healer, I know you just let this stuff come up. You don't have to know why. You don't even have to know why. It's just
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
But I just thought, what is going on here? I thought, wow,
Mm.
this is curious. I was actually a little bit embarrassed to go out. I had to keep the sunglasses on to check the because I was crying underneath. I had no idea why. And people might be feeling these emotions come up, and it was just like, oh yeah, they just let it go. That's it. It is what it is. We can psychoanalyze ourselves, but it's not an intellectual thing. Um, it can be past life stuff. It can be the trauma of being letting go of human, being this 3D. So we
Mm.
don't know, we don't even need to know. And absolutely this transformation. And so everybody, look, I think these frequencies are coming down to earth. I think people who have not looked at themselves at all felt an immense pain. And some people couldn't go on in this reality. They
Yeah.
literally couldn't exist. And other people, oh, all of a sudden their work became a toxic place, or the relationship, they just couldn't deal with it. Whatever, and everything is a relationship to
Yeah.
self, other people, job,
Yeah.
everything. A relationship is what it's all about. So a relationship itself is kind of invisible. It's the
Mm.
invisible world that is the world of matter in the end, the world
Yeah.
that um so whatever level you're at, even if you're working as a healer or whatever, that doesn't mean we're exempt. It just means that we're perhaps we'll feel it more subtly, but still very strongly, or in other
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So, and how I felt it, as I mentioned before, was like this feeling of what am I doing? What
Yeah.
actually what's going on? Um, and you just got to let things. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna, um, I'll read a few books that help me, because often I just sort of stay out of things, don't want to be influenced too much because I'm just doing what I want. But then to read a book about someone is, like on meditation, or just get back into that
Yeah.
um, original interest that you might have had. So to you've got to work at your joys. You've got to find those ways of that happening, and maybe other joys come into your life. But there's definitely been an opening. There's definitely been. It's a bit easier now
Yes. Yes.
than it was. So yeah, last year was the big one though. That was a doozy.
It was a doozy. Definitely.
Mm.
So, Greg, I see that our time's coming to a close. Tell us anything else you want to say before you go. What you've said some amazing things, and I think anybody who watches this that might have been going through it or is still going through it, still experiencing some of the remnants of it, um, will be very encouraged that it's okay, and it's whatever's happening is going through the normal thing of transformation. And also, I am conscious that not every one of us is at the same level, or not level, but at the same place in the journey.
Mm.
So there's going to be a huge awakening, and more people are going to go through what we've just come through. 2023, someone else is going to talk about 2024 being like that for them, because you know that's everyone's transforming from where they are or to where they are. What would you leave us
Yeah.
with?
Yeah, look, and look, I just think that don't, like, people should, shouldn't do anything, but don't be afraid to kind of get help, and do things that do help, or if you're gravitated toward trying something new, try that.
Yeah.
Some kind of, I think I told you earlier before this interview that I'm part of this group, kind of this mentorship group, and it started out as an alternative gap year for younger people, but um, now there's all ages. So, like, I had this retreat last week, and it was great. Where normally I'm used to just facilitating things, and I
Yeah.
was teaching people astral travel and meditation, and it wasn't necessarily people who came to me for that, because there are a whole lot of facilitators. So it was kind of nice for me to share these practices with people who didn't necessarily gravitate toward astral travel per se.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also, as part of the process last week, I was in nature for a whole week away, kind of off grid, no internet. And it was very nice for me to learn other things, and to, there was opening creative things, looking at different mind things. So I find I often become a little bit too self-reliant. So I've learned to allow myself to open to other things that may help. And as you
Yeah.
say, that my right community, I don't know, it wasn't easy. It's not always easy. I didn't necessarily want to go in the end. And everybody was saying the same thing. And then you're pulled into this thing and, part of me impatient
Yeah.
but just to slow down. So just to slow down, just to slow down, just to slow down and to be with a group of people. It can be any group of people, but and other things come out of you and you express things and to do things a little different. I urge people to try something a little different.
Yeah, I
Try,
agree. Yeah.
and just I think community is really important right now. I
Yes.
think I remember years ago, before any of this COVID stuff, before that all started, years ago, I had this really clear, lucid dream where I was with my partner at the time, and there was a group of people, and it was like people were living differently. And it was like here in Brisbane, got this big old rambling house, and it's good, I like it. But in this particular lucid dream, um, it was actually quite modern. So it was a modern setting, but people were living more communally. And it wasn't like a commune per se, but I remember saying to my partner in the dream, this is how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
So I think we're moving to a future where there probably will
Yes.
be more a community based, but not that notion of the tight kind of commune kind of situation, but just more, and I like my space, but there's somehow this reality was like you still had your space, but there was a sense of community coming together that was different to before.
Yes.
And I don't
Yes.
know exactly how that's shaping, but what I would suggest to people is to kind of reach into the future and reach back. So think of, we've all come through this and we're all still reacting to what happened the last few years, but starting to now feel like a bud, feeling an optimism, like there's almost like it's the same kind of, you know, um, kind of plant almost, but there's different flowers opening. It's like there's something different opening, and
Yes.
I don't know what that
Yeah.
is, but all I know is being open to it, and there's a new sense of optimism coming. So to feel this pull toward things that make you feel good,
Yeah.
that are real, and also to operate from, a higher sense of good, so to use a different way of communicating, a different way of pushing what it is we do, because I know we're in a reality where we got to do stuff, we got to make money, blah, 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 but somehow, operating slightly differently and knowing, just being ultra authentic.
Yeah.
We have to be ultra authentic. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Ultra authentic is the way to be. And just being in tune and being easy with yourself. If you're
Yeah.
starting to feel jittery or whatever, just like, okay, I'm going to go through this, whatever this is, I know that I'll come out on the other side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
many people for the last 12 months that have had these shifts that felt out of sync with themselves,
Yeah.
they are the forerunners, or if for everybody else that's going to come through and go through this and say, well, you know what? Yeah, because today we're talking about this. Somebody might
Mm.
write about it. And then,
Yeah.
and I felt very strongly in this last few weeks that we're sort of leaving an imprint for anybody else that comes through transformation from the
Yeah.
3D to the fifth dimension in the future. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense when I say we're leaving an imprint, but we are. We are. Why do we do these things? Why have we got a YouTube? Why have we got all the stuff that's collecting information? Even those people that might be collecting information that is rumored to be not so good for not so good reasons, they're still collecting information. You know.
Yeah.
So Greg, thank you so much for your time today. It
Oh,
was
pleasure, Rose. It's been a delight. I've loved our conversation because we had no idea where it was going to go, and it's absolutely
no,
perfect.
no, we certainly had no idea where it was going to go, and I do love it. I love that because you've given so much insight. I think it's been one of my profoundest, if there's such a word, conversations about current times in navigation and what it means and what is actually happening. And I really love that we are talking about it because it's an absolute apt time to be talking about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And everyone realized, no one's alone.
No.
We're all in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Be easy. Be easy with yourself. Well, thank you so much again, Greg. And you're very welcome back here, as always. Catch up again in another 12 months or less. Let's not leave it too long. Um, well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. And yes, we'll catch you next time here on the Great Awakening Generator. I'm Rose McNair, and I've had Greg Doyle with me today. Bye-bye, everyone.